Primrose Watson, are you ready?
I am.
There you go. Well, Primrose Watson, thank you for coming to episode number 15 of Lessons from Leaders. Today, Primrose is going to talk to us about everything to do with law or her specialty in law, which she would explain a little bit later. But first of all, before we go on, I'm going to ask, how did we meet?
Thank you for having me, Emo. I think going back to how we met was in a grocery store, I'd say maybe 10 years ago, being introduced by a mutual coworker and who knew each other, both of us. And then we kept bumping into each other in the grocery store, Costco, and we kept in touch because I was doing my finance undergrad at the
Yes.
time. And I was talking to you about how I wanted to go to law school. And then I was going to law school, and we always kept in touch because we kept bumping into each other and we had a mutual friend. So that's how we met, and we've stayed in touch.
Excellent. I like that. It's always interesting how people meet and how we keep those relationships, which in the end actually foster many big things and great things going forward.
Yeah, and it's
So,
easy with you, Emo. You're such a social butterfly and you're just always open and positive. So I don't think anyone would not want to talk to you. Like
well,
you go to the Canadian Tire to get the tire changed, and you make a friend there. That's your podcast. That's how you get your podcast
well, there you go.
people.
Well, I used to be very, very shy. So I was an extreme introvert. So I've kind of gone the other end of the scale. So I was a guy who wouldn't talk to anyone. So it's funny that, and maybe it's proof that we all can learn and change, if anything,
Right. And grow.
and grow. I like that.
Yeah.
So talking about growth, now that you're a lawyer and you've been a lawyer for a while, could you just tell us a little bit about the company and what you
Mhm.
do? Now, I do have a bunch of questions that people had asked because I told them I was coming with a fantastic lawyer, so they have their questions, and we could get to that after. But for now, tell us a little bit about your company and what you do.
So I started Primrose Tax Law, I would say in 2023, but most of that time was spent on designing the law firm because what I set out to do is I am a corporate tax lawyer, so I implement tax reorganizations for clients, for business owners, for their corporate structure. So I bring in income tax law and corporate law, and this those type of complicated transactions are done with a huge support by tax accountants. So I work with very closely with tax accountants
Okay.
and accountants that are helping business owners. So it's a collaborative relationship that I have with accountants. But on the other hand, at the law firm that I started that is solely on corporate law and very specifically on that tax aspect, because tax impacts all of us in more than one way.
True.
So to have a good handle on it when you're incorporated, an accountant, and then when you have more complicated structures, a tax accountant, and that's where I get involved because right now, we are having a shift in the Canadian income tax law for business owners, where there are lots of changes in rules, and we need to now support our files for every tax plan of point in laws because the law is changing so fast. We
Okay.
need to back up the files so that if CRA does audit and there is an issue, we can say that was the law at that time. And so we cannot foresee the future. So now taxpayers, mostly entrepreneurs and business owners, are now having to add more work, more compliance because of the complexities of tax law. But for entrepreneurs, for those who are starting up, so I help the more complex, but I also help the starting because if you are set up right from the beginning, then you just have less headaches and you don't want to be burdened with these administrative things that you could have had done set up correctly. So I think this is maybe a good way of how incorporations might be, where something that entrepreneurs should consider, because one of the main businesses, the services that I offer is the incorporation. The law firm works across Canada, except in Quebec and the territories. I'm called to the Ontario Society, Law Society of Ontario, as well as the Nova Scotia Barrister Society. So I'm bringing in that corporate law, the breadth of corporate law where I have practiced in BC, in Alberta, because at the end of the day, income tax law is federal law. It's implemented through the corporate structures based on provincial law or federal law. And that's where I come in, because I have the comparative provincial federal knowledge of corporate law.
Right.
But I want to segue to entrepreneurs, because I want to make it very accessible to everyone, for business owners as well as entrepreneurs.
One of the questions which I got asked was, because it says, your title says corporate law, people are going, oh my, they're thinking corporations and they had to be that big. So maybe there's some place where, as you're talking about that, you could give a range of the kind of clients you're talking about, because when people hear corporate or corporations, they think, oh my goodness, is this big, 80 to 1,000 employee type of thing. So could you just shed some light on that as you answer the questions about incorporation and when it's necessary and when it's not, and kind of things like that?
Yes, and I can talk about the benefits of it as well. Now, when I talk about the costing of incorporating your business at my law firm, I'm offering it at a legal fee of $700 plus the government fees of the registry and taxes. So that is across the country. So whether it is to incorporate a federal company or an Ontario corporation or a PEI corporation or a Nova Scotia company, it's $700. So I'm bringing that sort of uniform pricing across the country, so that corporate services, corporate tax law is accessible to every Canadian or every person who is resident in Canada. And I got to say that my practice is very specifically for business owners in Canada, because if I go back to the roots of why I started the law firm, it is to support Canada, because having knowledge in tax and corporate law, I find it very empowering. And every time I speak with an entrepreneur or a business owner, there's always like something that I can add to them, and it brings back a lot of joy for me. So it's a full circle for me, because I'm actually using the knowledge that I have since I came to Canada from 2007. And I want to give back to Canada with the knowledge that I have gained. So talking about incorporations, generally, if you are doing a business that is earning income, then it is a good sign for you to talk to an accountant, because if you are in a business where you have to collect and remit GST, HST, you need to have those compliances. And now with technology, it is very automated if you work with an accountant that is also, and we have a lot of cloud accountants available. And so that is a good start of understanding that with incorporating a company comes the responsibility of compliance, which requires an expense. Now, keep in mind, when you have a company or a corporation in Canada, we have what is called, I won't get into too much technical because I want anyone to understand, we have a lower rate for businesses. So there is up to $500,000 of income, also known as profit. You get a lower tax rate across the country. It's between 9 to 12%. Depending on which province or territory you live. So that's a significantly lower rate, where it's about 27 to 30% of tax rate after that 500,000 threshold. So there is that benefit for even a small business. Even if you're earning up to, say, 500,000, you're still paying that corporate tax rate at a lower tax rate. And then comes the other benefit of you're taxed at that low rate and that money is in your company. And then you have to sort of figure out what cash flow needs you have. And then that's where the accountant and tax accountant come in and sort of bring their expertise in. And I bring in the corporate law aspect of it along with taxes. So that's a very complicated way to explain it, maybe. But in general, when you have a business that is profitable, one of the main concerns is liability. You are
Right.
exposed to being sued under your personal name, and that's when your house and your personal assets are exposed to creditors. So entrepreneurs inherently are risk takers. We have to be, and I am one too, so I get it. So when we take risks, we want to make sure that we are taking mitigation that is available to everyone. And that is through the limited liability concept that comes with corporations. So limited liability means your loss is limited to the money you put into the company.
Okay.
So it's sort of like a separate person. It's considered, it has this way, we call it the veil, and it's considered a separate person. And a corporation can outlive you and me both, Emo. It can live forever. And
Right.
so unlike a sole proprietorship that, would go away with the person, with the loss of the person, but think about the other benefits. We have ways to get funding from banks, access to grants, access to the small business deduction. What else do we have? It's easy to sell your business. Think about it. You want to either raise money so you can issue some shares and raise money. You can issue preferred shares. That can be debt raising. You can do these things when you have that corporate structure, and unlike when it's a sole proprietorship.
Right.
And so between that, having the benefit of limited liability, as well as that small business deduction, I think anyone with a business that is making profits should incorporate for
Right.
that reason. Yeah.
So now, if somebody said, they go, well, my business makes, let's say their business makes $25,000. Should they still incorporate, or is it too small for that?
I would say 150 maybe, but it very much depends on the person and their goals and the type of industry, because some industries are more litigious. So you want to make sure that you're not going to be sued personally when you are an entrepreneur taking a risk and doing the good work to expand our economy. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help business owners and entrepreneurs who are doing the hard work. We are the backbone of this economy to expand it. This is fiscal policy. This is macroeconomics at play. And we are now big drivers of it. We are playing an active role even to do this podcast.
Right. That's good. Okay. So, yes, I guess people can get some numbers on thresholds and stuff. And as part of your office, when someone comes to visit you, that's when you kind of go through all of those things to talk about what kind of business they have, what their profits are, and where they are in that whole spectrum of should they incorporate or not at this point in time, or should they wait for something, right?
Yes.
Excellent.
So very much a collaborative work with the accountant here, because I have an accounting background, a finance and an insurance background as well on top of tax. And that's why I feel like I bring the business part of it too, not just the law and the tax to it.
Excellent. Okay, so talking
Exactly.
about taking action, where are you located? How can people get a hold of you? How can people find out more about what you do? Now, I'm going to put links and a whole bunch of things in the description of this podcast. But for now, um, where can people get a hold of you? And do you have a website? And yes,
So I am a virtual law firm, and I am located both in Ontario, in Toronto, as well as in Halifax. But I practice in BC, in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, in
wow,
Manitoba, in New Brunswick, PEI, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, and Ontario. My website is primrosetax.ca. And on the contact page, I have an email address, hello@primrosetax.ca. I do have a contact box there where you can just put your contact information and I will contact you. And I'm on LinkedIn. You can send me a message there. Uh, that would be, yeah, and then that's the virtual presence is what provides that accessibility. I
nice.
do want to add that one of the key features in my law firm is that I use electronic minute books, and I provide uh, the service of those who have those physical big binders of corporate minute books. I provide them the ability to create them, to make them into official electronic minute books. So that is a service I'm doing because that provides help to a lot of business owners. And I want to be part of the change to bring in technology for legal services because we can make legal services affordable, reasonable, accessible, and it is by the use of technology. And
Right.
that is what I am bringing to Canada. That is what I want for business owners in Canada that I can provide with the knowledge that I have got.
Well, you know what? I like that a lot because again, it's the efficiency that comes with technology, and it's the same thing with on my
Yes.
end, my business when I'm talking to businesses or helping them reduce costs and all or increase efficiency. It's
Yes.
using technology. That's the big thing that does all the heavy lifting, so they could spend their time on their core competencies as opposed to run around trying to push paper when they could use tech to do that. So
And in Ontario, the legal fees are quite higher for business owners than in Nova Scotia. For me, I kept my prices uniform across the country. So I have a lot of clients from Toronto, Ontario, every part of Ontario that is wanting to access services that are reasonably priced because it makes a difference on the tax plan too. Because if it's going to cost more, it doesn't really make sense, then the plan does not go through. But once legal services of corporate tax plan implementation becomes more accessible because of the reasonable fees,
right.
I find people have more access now to tax planning than before. And I'm happy to be part of that solution.
Well, excellent. Well, I'm happy to promote the fact that you're part of that solution because that's again, coming in here. It's how can we help do things better and make the place better, right?
Exactly.
So that's what it's all
And we
about.
can do things better and we can do things at a reasonable fee. It does not have to be like if you are incorporating, say, Nova Scotia with a name, it will come to all in after tax and all the fees, it's $1,000
Right. That's pretty
to
good.
incorporate a company, and you can claim it as your business expense.
Oh, look at that. So this is like the gift that keeps on giving.
It just keeps on giving, indeed.
That's good. Well, thank you very much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us. I know I'm going to have more questions, which I would ask and post later. I hope that we can use this as a springboard to start providing education on why people
Yes,
should be aware. So at least they have enough information to make an informed decision on something that would impact
exactly.
their lives and impact the lives of their family, or impact the kind of
And I
business they
think,
have.
Emo, the next podcast, we could talk about CRA audit
Okay.
powers. I think business owners and entrepreneurs need to be very aware of the changes that have taken place in the powers that have been given to the CRA to enforce their mandate. And it really is jarring. And
Wow.
the fact that we are not aware, I would say most Canadians are not aware because we are getting information from everywhere.
Right.
But this is one of my research topics of how to protect clients in order for them to organize their affairs. So we can talk about the Westminster Principle and all that in the next topic. So CRA audit powers and Westminster Principle.
Done. So let's make that. This was episode 15. Let's make this episode 16. We're going to talk about
Got it.
that. So we will set up a time after this, and I'll get you to share on that so that we all have, knowledge is power. Information is power.
Yes, knowledge is power.
And we get the right knowledge so we can have the power to live better lives. So
Exactly. And better informed decisions and choices that align with our aspirations.
indeed. Again, look, thank you very much. And
Thank you for
yes,
having me.